Yeah, I think we're at 4 o'clock right now, and I'm glad you worked out all the technical issues, everything. Welcome, excuse me, welcome to Ventana Wildlife Society's Condor Zoom chat held on the last Thursday of the month. Next Condor Zoom chat will be on Thursday, April 28th. And we're so excited to have you here. We are just really thrilled to give you monthly updates. And if you're new to these Condor Zoom chats, you'll find that they're quite casual and informative, and give you some latest insight from the field, things that are going on with the birds, with the program. And we love pulling in guests. And we're very excited to have Zeka Glucs. Sorry if it's Glucs, that's what I thought. Zeka was an intern with us just 10 years ago, and she had a different name then. So that's part of why I struggled there. But anyway, it's so nice to have you back to Ventana in this way. I'm really excited that you're now the director of the Predatory Bird Research Group at UC Santa Cruz. That's quite an achievement in just these last 10 years, so congratulations. And before I start off with a quick question for you, I wanted to share a little story. Back in the 1990s, when I first came out to California, Ventana Wildlife Society was very small, and we needed a lot of support. And the bird group, the Predatory Bird Research Group at UC Santa Cruz, was hugely helpful. And I remember going up there in the rock quarry where the peregrines were being raised and released to the wild, and going up there and talking with the biologists and borrowing gear, and even spend the night on campus. But you didn't hear that from me. So it's just a long time we've collaborated, and it's just been really great to have those years and to have you here today. So actually, before I ask you, Zeka, just real quick, I want to mention, because this is new to our supporters and donors, we have a new Condor program logo, and with this graphic, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to take a moment to share it with you and to explain that it is for the Condor program specifically, and not replacing the organization logo. So you'll see these side by side, and most often you'll see this new Condor program logo used in our videos and things. We really feel the logo captures our niche in the world very well. We got started releasing condors in 1997. Back on the Big Sur coast. And, when a lot of people think of our program and think of Ventana Wildlife Society, they think Central Coast, and oftentimes think the Big Sur coast in particular. So we really wanted to get that logo to match that. But anyway, so back to you, Zeka. I would love to hear more about your path since the time you were here as an intern. Where, those 10 years, a lot happened. Can you share?
Well, I actually put together a bit of a slideshow as a visual aid, if it's all right if I share that.
That's perfect. Thank you.
That's your question.
Yeah, Zeke, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Glad to have you on, by the way. So psyched to see you.
Great to be here. Great
Been a while. We're so proud of you here. Big time. You don't even know.
That means a lot. Thank you. All right, let's get going. I think I fixed my issue. Oh, I didn't, but I figured out how to fix it here, so I can do that. All right. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So I put together just a bunch of photos I had from the past 10 years, it's hard work, summarizing your whole professional life in 15 minutes. So we'll see if I get close. But yeah, as you guys said, I'm with the Predatory Bird Group now, but the Ventana Wildlife Society internship was really like a pivotal point for me in my work. And so I'm excited to talk a bit about how I got there and then what's happened since. So I went to school at UC Davis. I studied environmental biology and management there. But in my summers, I actually worked in a lab at UC Santa Cruz. That's where I'm from, Santa Cruz. And it was a lead toxicology lab. So all summer long, I'd be analyzing samples for lead isotopes, and in ocean water and plants and maple syrup and whatever people sent us. So that was kind of like my first entree into lead work. And then the connection with condors was really made in a raptor biology class I took at UC Davis, which, I was getting really into bird work. I was thinking of kind of switching more to field work. And then I read this paper on ammunition being the principal source of lead in California condors. And I was just like, man, I understand everything in this paper, use all the same techniques I use. How cool would it be if I could use some of this lab experience and work with raptors? And that was kind of the first little light bulb there. And what kind of led me to start looking for condor opportunities. This actually, so I went to work at the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory right after college, but me and a group of the interns went down to Big Sur while I was an intern there to see if we could see our first condor. And I'd been to Big Sur and never seen a condor. So luckily we brought a botanist with us because she wasn't looking at the bird. She took this photo. This is the first moment of me ever seeing a California condor and all of us. And so we saw a couple of birds flying over by Grimes Point. And you guys probably know who those are. At the time we didn't, but it was really special. And it's been really awesome to get to bring students down to have that experience and get to watch their faces when they see their first condor. So actually my first kind of entree into the program was as a volunteer. So I was keeping my ear to the ground for condor opportunities, and Pinnacles happened to be looking for docents to help with their first nest in the park in 100 years. Yeah, this is back in 2010. So I signed up and I got to go a couple times a month and watch this nest and talk to people that could see, this nest from a very high traffic trail. And so I got to meet some of the biologists and sort of get a little view into what it was like to be a condor biologist. And I was this is what I want to try to do. And I was really lucky that in 2011, I had a break in work and you guys were looking for interns. And so I got to apply and finally become an intern at the Ventana Wildlife Society. And it's an amazing experience being an intern. I feel like the Condor program, you learn so many, it's so multifaceted that you learn so many different kinds of field techniques and conservation techniques in one, 6-month, 7-month internship. And you get to really get to know the birds too. And at the time, I think there were maybe 50, 60 birds in the population in the Central Coast. So, you get to know every single individual super well. You spend a lot of time with them. This is me and my stake doing a carcass drop, just to show you some of the diversity of the different kinds of experiences you have, and also some of the physical challenges of it. I worked for the most part with Erin Brannon, who was my co-intern, who's still involved in the program. She's a great ornithologist, and it's really fun to get to make these connections that kind of live on beyond Ventana Wildlife Society. And of course, just getting to be immersed in the beauty that is Big Sur, just really getting to spend all your time in this landscape is really, you can't beat it. And then, the learning how to respond to whatever you find in the backcountry. We really had to learn how to be flexible and problem solvers, and that was a really great experience as well. And just for nostalgia's sake, I have a few pictures of the old base camp. We spent a lot of time there. We were releasing birds when I was an intern, and so we mostly were here. And so yeah, so we can remember, the awesomeness that it was. I know you guys are making an even better spot out there, but I'll definitely always remember this site as a little second home. So yeah, so afterwards, I hope I'm not anticipating your questions too much, but I'll just roll through. You guys could ask me afterwards. I was really lucky.
By the way.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I can go back to photos too if you guys have questions. But yeah, I was really lucky. I got to stay in the Condor program after I left Ventana Wildlife Society from the research side. So when I was an intern, we had to bring samples up to UC Santa Cruz from time to time. So samples we collect during health checks, sometimes samples collected from carcasses. And I would always volunteer to do that because I was going home to see my family a lot. And so I got to meet the researchers at UC Santa Cruz that were doing this work. And I slowly kind of nudged my way in, having them accept me as a graduate student. And so I started that pretty soon after I left Ventana. And I went there to study the effects of lead poisoning on California condors. So I just wanted to show a little bit of the data we generated for part of my thesis there. Oh, first I'll talk a bit about how we got that data. So as part of my work, we did some lead talks or just lead sort of measurement projects, but for my project, we're actually looking at hormones. And so I need to collect new different kinds of biological samples, namely fecal samples or urate samples, which are the liquid portion of avian feces. And so I kind of had to start from square one, but since I had worked with the field crew and you guys were so willing to kind of help me out and get this all started, I really had great access to collecting samples during health checks. So I just came out as every handling day I could make for about 3 years and collected all the samples I could from these birds, blood samples and fecal samples. And we sampled about 70% of the population, which was amazing. Oh yeah, and you guys helped me design my fecal sample collection kennels. So they're right here and they worked really great. We basically just used carrying kennels and blocked out the visuals as much as possible, how to tray into there so I could non-invasively track hormones in fecal samples over time. And another thing that was great is that, since I had an idea of how handling days went, I feel like if there was a good flow between, me kind of staying out of your guys' way and finding ways to collect from the birds that was just not stressful for the birds or the people or anyone, ended up going really well. So yeah, then I took those samples back to the lab at UCSC. I also did some work down at the San Diego Zoo to measure hormones, specifically stress hormones in these samples. And so the basic, first picture we got was that when you look at stress hormones during a handling event in condors, we saw that the wild birds not only tended to have a bit of a higher stress response to handling, but also more varied response. And there's a lot of differences potentially between captive and wild birds, but one of the big ones I was interested in is that wild birds are exposed to environmental contaminants, whereas captive birds not quite so much, since they have controlled, diet with clean food. So that was an interesting kind of first look. And then we did, because California condors have such an extensive data set, so we have data on what they're doing every day, obviously gender, age, really unprecedented amounts of data on a population. I was able to kind of model out a lot of these kinds of variation to figure out where the variation in the stress hormones is coming from. And the sort of end result of that story is when you account for all of these differences between the birds, the main drivers of that variation you're seeing and how much they respond to stress was actually these behaviors that we know are associated with contaminants. So behaviors like spending a lot of time away from the feeding site, that leads to more lead exposure. And behaviors like more days seen per year feeding on marine mammals, that is very well connected with exposure to marine contaminants like mercury, PCBs, and DDE. And so basically both of these effects were leading to increased stress responses in the birds. Now this isn't super novel. We know that these compounds can have these effects on the birds, but to be able to detect it in a wild population and a natural kind of experiment was really special, and also kind of the first sort of little poke into the idea of sublethal effects in California condors. What happens when these birds are getting exposed to these contaminants, especially lead, over and over again? They're not dying, but what other physiological impacts are having on that's having on the birds? So since then, once I graduated, I took on the role of director of the Predatory Bird Research Group at UC Santa Cruz. We're a very small nonprofit at this point, and a big part of what we do is a long-term monitoring program for peregrine falcons in the Bay Area. And we've got some other small projects I'll mention as well. Peregrine falcon's the bird on the left. You guys know the condor on the right. But I just wanted to point out that one of the reasons I was really excited about this project is that there are a lot of similarities between these birds' stories. Of course, there's some differences. So peregrine falcon's steep decline in the 20th century was mostly due to reproductive failure from DDE, or DDT is the original pesticide. It induced eggshell thinning, they couldn't reproduce. Whereas California condors are dealing with high mortality from lead exposure, but the commonalities is that they're both these toxin-mediated declines. They had to have captive breeding programs and releases into the wild, and then long-term monitoring to ensure that they're doing all right. And peregrine falcon's just a little farther on that timeline. I'm hopeful that California condors are getting there too, but it's just kind of cool to see that snapshot of this like successful story, but also see where condors could be soon enough with all your hard work. So just very quickly, we do a lot of banding of birds. That's how we monitor the birds. Our site is the greater San Francisco Bay Area. You can see on this picture, there's 2 different bands on the chick in the front. It's got a little silver bands. That's like what all birds get. And then we have our black VID bands that have a letter and number code. And that's kind of like the condor patagial tags. It's something we can see from far away. And so we can tell what's going on, not only when birds are found sick, injured, or dead, but also when they're out in the wild doing what they do best, you know, breeding and moving around the landscape. So we can get a lot of data back from those. We rely on volunteer citizen scientists to conduct a lot of the observations that help us not only track nesting, but also get into the nest at the right time to do the banding. And then another condor connection is because as our breeding population grows, every single year we're getting new nests. It's getting harder to do all the banding by myself. So I've started putting together a team of banders that help us. And 2 of those banders are condor biologists from Pinnacles National Park. So these connections have really served me throughout my career. Being able to lean on folks that have these skills that are local has been great. We have nest cams. So at the end, when I show our website, you can get to our nest cams, sort of similar to what Ventana's got, just different species. And these are urban nest sites, so a little different feel as well. We do fledge watches where we make sure our urban peregrines, if the community comes out, we make sure our urban peregrines make that first flight safely. And if they don't, we help them out, get them back up to a safe spot. And then I've really been working on revitalizing our student internship project or program. So we basically are training students in field techniques so that they have a leg up when they are going out into the job market themselves. And they're even doing some of their own research now here in Santa Cruz on a sort of raptor rodent control project that's been really fun. But the full circle story is that now for the past 2 years, I've gotten to teach a college course on the California Condor Recovery Program here at UC Santa Cruz, which has been so fun because obviously it's a topic I'm really passionate about. This picture is from this field trip that we got to go on this year. This is the first time we got to do an in-person field trip over the winter. And this was really special for the students because they've been remote for a couple years. So this was just like the extreme immersive, awesome experience and getting to all be together. But also Ventana Wildlife Society, you guys, I see Darren and Keanu down there, really helped us out and really kind of were our tour guides while we were there for the whole weekend. And we got to shadow them and really see what it was like to be a field biologist, as well as getting to see condors and see their habitat. So it was this kind of awesome immersive experience for the students. They took us on some crazy off-trail hikes. We also tracked condors. And I just got nothing but really positive reviews from the students. So I'm super grateful that we got to do that. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me, but also for everything that you guys kind of launched me onto as this intern. And I also just wanted to throw up our information. So if anyone's curious, go over to our website or social media and you can learn more about what I do now.
So awesome, Zeka. Oh my God, you don't know how proud we are. That's unbelievable. I mean, Kelly is right there with me. We're blown away right now. So wow.
Yeah, and Joe, I just wanted to chime in real quick. You know, the Predatory Bird Research Group in Santa Cruz is the group mostly responsible for the recovery of the peregrine falcon in California. And I just, I'm proud to be associated with you now today and proud of the past that we shared. And I just love your story because it also helps tell our story of collaboration and helping each other out. Years ago, you helped us out with, the bird group did when we were getting started with bald eagle recovery, and now full circle. So I just thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story. And you know what? It was as if you knew what my questions were.
Well, we
Well,
might
I
have
had
some
an
from the
inkling.
from folks too. We got, fortunately, we got some time for questions too from not only Kelly, but other folks. Please, if you have questions, Mike can field those. But Kelly, did you have some right away or yours covered? I think yours are covered, right? Yeah, you got mine too, Zeka, but yeah, so glad to have you here. Any good questions coming in, Mike?
A lot of great comments about the program and about you in particular, and a lot of applause for women in science that you represent. Kathy would like to know, does your peregrine program have contact with the National Aviary Peregrine folks in Pittsburgh? I've watched their peregrine webcams for years. Love those peregrines, writes Kathy.
So we have a lot of parallel programs like that because peregrine falcons have done so well in urban areas and are nesting so densely. So there are similar programs around the country. I haven't specifically personally been in touch with them, but I always love to get in touch with folks out there because I learn a lot from them and how they do their work. But yeah, peregrine falcons, as Kelly said, it's such a saga. It's an amazing story, similar to the California condor that I grew up with as like, you know, the success story. And that was part of me wanting to get into the condor program because I was like, oh, now I get to see this, you know, species recover. It's been a little bit more of a complicated story, but yeah, the peregrine falcon is really quite a guiding light.
Hey, and I loved your pictures of base camp. I might have to hit you up to get those because
I'll send them all
we're
over,
looking
yeah.
for all old photos of base camp right now. So those were really awesome. That definitely, yeah, that was a big, awesome chapter. But yeah, we're looking forward to rebuilding, and we're going to keep you posted on that as well. Any other good questions coming in, Mike?
Sure. Yeah. I imagine, Zeka, you're probably not able to give out any nest sites of peregrines in the area, but maybe if you can answer some questions about maybe general nest descriptions and how many nests could we expect to find in the Santa Cruz area, their spacing, perhaps?
Right. So there's sky seems to be the limit as far as spacing is concerned. We have birds nesting a mile apart in the cities, but what they're really limited by is appropriate nesting kind of structures or outcroppings, things like that. They tend to, like condors, they don't build nests, so they have to utilize natural cliff nests. There are potholes and ledges. They can use dead standing trees, but they like a bit more of a view, so that's pretty rare. But then they will do often now, we see them doing having nests on buildings, bridges, cranes, whatever is above about 60 feet tall, they might try to nest on. They generally do better on taller structures and taller cliffs because it's a little less they're able to avoid predators. But yeah, so you can find them in Santa Cruz County. We don't have as many nest sites here just because we don't have as many great nest site locations as like down in Big Sur. You've got those big cliffs on the coastline, and in the Bay Area, you've got a lot of great structures. But we do have a couple up in the watersheds of the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Yeah, I think nest site selection is very, very important with the terrain. And yes, there are birds that nest on the tall buildings. And one of the questions asks what the disturbance is like for some of these more urban peregrines.
Yeah, they're able to handle some crazy stuff. So things like lights at night, they seem to be okay with, obviously noise. And we even have a couple pairs now that nest on the counterweights of drawbridges that go up and down when the bridges are opened, but they just stay on the nest incubating while that happens. So they are highly adaptive to these novel nesting situations. But yeah, it depends on the pair. So we also see kind of like in the wild when there's a lot of climbers around, you might get on a natural cliff face, birds that are more okay with people being around. But then there's other birds that are much more shy and really react to any kind of human presence. So it's very bird to bird as far as what they'll take.
Yeah, so if there are some window washers, some birds might be a little
Exactly.
tolerant and some might not like that, at least at first.
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll react to that.
Yeah, they might get used to it though if they're subjected to that frequently.
Zeka, this was a while ago, obviously, but do you remember who your favorite bird was? Did you have a favorite bird?
Well, I mean, so I released 569, so she'll always be very, very dear to my heart. And
we have an update on her, by the way.
He's still around and is a breeder now. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some news on that front. So
oh, great.
Some exciting news Darren and crew are going to share. Well, cool. Any other questions, Mike? Jumping out, we could probably got time for one more.
Well, I can just clean up one about the lead. Mia asks about lead ammunition and the ban, and are we seeing a decline in the number of condors affected by lead, or has it stayed about the same or even increased? And the answer is it's really still kind of a fluid situation, where for a while we were seeing a reduction in the amount of lead caused mortality, and that kind of changed when COVID hit. We started seeing a surge. Now, we don't necessarily link it with COVID, but perhaps we can link it with the low availability of non-lead ammunition in the wake of the pandemic. We saw stores empty of ammunition, and so people had a very difficult time getting non-lead ammunition, even though it was required. And perhaps coincidentally, we saw a surge in lead poisoning that we hope we're recovering from now. So I think it's a little too early to tell, but certainly we have great hope that that in time, this is going to reduce the incidence of lead poisoning. So thank you, Mia, for that question.
Yeah, and thank you again, Zeka. We want you to stay on if you can through our field update. You might have some questions too as we're going through. I'm excited. Yeah, we got a lot to share. I'm sure you've heard too. We've had a lot going on, and really anxious. I know the crew's chomping at the bit to give everybody a big update. But yeah, big thanks to Zeka. Yeah, again, just so awesome. And let me see here. Trying to get my screen to work. Here we go. Yeah, real quick, just start out with the crew. Crew's been really busy, and big kudos to them. We've had a lot going on. We've been running a bunch of different directions. We just had a big transfer happen this month, monitoring the new release birds. We had a lot of nesting going on. Today we have Darren Gross and Kara right there on the same screen, Kara Fadden, and then we have Danae joining in. Evan's not here this round, but he'll be back next month. But yeah, we have a lot to update on. And yeah, real quick on the rebuild, some exciting news. We're going to start pretty soon breaking ground on the release pen. We have the green light there, so we're real excited. We're going to meet with the contractor and start laying things out. And yeah, we might even have some days on the cam there where you'll see some activity in the next coming months. So we're really excited. Still waiting on some permits for the main cabin, for our base camp cabin, but things are going in the right direction. So we're really excited, because I can't tell you how me and the crew are excited to get that release pen back. It's such a great tool. Allows us to recapture birds for transmitters and basically do health checks, everything. So it's we're anxiously ready to get going on that. So good news there. And yeah, and without further ado, I'll let Darren, you guys want to jump on in on the San Simeon release update?
Yeah, sure. So we're just, because we have so much to cover this update, we're just going to kind of go through each bird quickly here and kind of recent updates on them in the last month. So all of the birds have still been using San Simeon pretty frequently this past month, but they've also started exploring more. So for instance, 1011 has made it to Pinnacles National Park. I think that was just today or yesterday. It was pretty recent. And a couple weeks ago, we had a couple birds make it up to Big Sur for the first time. I think 1019 got up there first, but then 1036 wasn't too far behind her. And they've been going back and forth ever since between Big Sur and our Pinnacle site. Aniko has been signaled by Pinnacles National Park, but she has not made it there yet, but we're following her closely through GPS, and she's not too far. She's still hanging out in that area. So hopefully she'll make it to the park soon and they'll see her over at their facility. 1038 almost made it to Pinnacles National Park, but then we saw her make a U-turn and head right back to San Simeon. So she's still spending most of her time there. And then same thing with 1042. We've noticed her flying out a little bit, but not really making it anywhere too far away yet. And as soon as she gets to a point where she's ready to head back and look for food at San Simeon again, she turns right back around and heads there. So most of them are still around. And then, yeah, this is from, I think, March 13th, the first day that 1036 joined 1019 at base camp. Just a couple photos that were captured by some of the Explore viewers on our live cam of them hanging out with other birds at the bath and eating the food that we place up there.
Yeah, it was funny to watch because, you know, anytime new birds show up, I think their eyes must be this big around because they're seeing this whole other world of condor life, especially around Big Sur where we have such a big hierarchy. You know, since you left, Zeka, now we have this huge tiered hierarchy, you know, from 20-plus-year-old birds to the teens to then you got these real newbie rookies coming in. And yeah, I noticed when we were watching, it was especially when 1019 showed up, when Jane showed up, she was definitely all by herself at first, but it was cool. They kind of have been bonding up with the untagged juveniles, which is kind of cool. You know, birds of the same age kind of flock together. But yeah, anyway.
Hey, by the way, I just noticed in the chat that someone saw Aniko back in San Simeon on the webcam.
Oh, she just popped back in.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
Our viewers are dedicated, I'm telling you.
I love it.
Yeah, and then we can get right into the transfer now, Joe. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to mention before we jump into that, but. Oh, he's good.
So, Joe, I think you need to unmute. But I'm glad you pulled up the Yurok birds. This is the big news. You said transfer, but it's much bigger than just a transfer. This is the first cohort of condors, Preganiche, going to or have already been taken to Northern California. I think it's awesome. I'd love for you to tell us more about that.
Yeah, just real quick, Darren. I didn't miss a slide, did I? No.
Nope. Yeah, I think this is next up.
Yeah, so yeah, this is obviously we've all been anxiously awaiting to get the birds up north. And, you know, Ventana, we've been supporting this release site. Wow, Kelly, when did we start? But 2008, when they first came to the first meeting and proposed a release site up there. And of course, we were the closest kind of sister site to that release site, you know, the Redwoods. And so we immediately jumped on board and we've just been supporting them all along the way. Been a big champion to this release site, just encouraging them along. And so it's come full circle and they're here, and we were glad to hold their birds while they finished up their release pen. These birds arrived at San Simeon in September, maybe mid-September, right, Darren? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was shortly after Labor Day.
Yeah, so they were with us 6 months. So we definitely grew attached to these guys and gals. You can't help but start following them. And, you know, the fact that 2 of them were a little bit older, I think was cool. We had 2 3-year-olds in there. They're now actually 2.5 on here, but they just turned 3. And the others are 2 years old. So they were kind of ruling the roost a little bit, those older birds. So it was kind of good to see that age in there. And of course they watched Aniko and the others go out in November and December, which was a little rough for those guys who were probably wishing to be with their buddies. But at the same time, we all knew their role is going to be starting up north. So it's pretty exciting that we started the transfer on Sunday, and right before the weather was about to turn. And we're going to have a video coming out in a couple days showing the journey of the birds up north. Meredith is working on it. Right, Kelly?
Yeah,
we're excited to share the kind of behind the scenes look of that transfer because big kudos to our crew, to Darren and everybody. It was raining. There was a big storm coming in Sunday night. And then of course, up on the ridges, it starts to get pretty windy, and the drizzle had come in. So they were able to get the birds scooped up safely into the kennels and get them on their way by Sunday afternoon. They came here, stayed overnight in Monterey in their kennels. We headed out really early Monday morning and did about an 8-hour drive up north to north of Arcata to Redwood National Park. And the birds arrived safely. And yeah, and honestly, when they're in those kennels for that long of a drive, it's pretty amazing. They kind of just hunker down. I think once they realize they're kind of in a safe place, they kind of just relax. For the most part, they're pretty quiet on the drive up inside those kennels. Yeah, which is what we want. And so it was a nice peaceful drive up, and we get up there and the weather was pretty good. And they were very excited. We felt like we had rock star cargo. We were bringing the local celebrities in. It was pretty cool. And they had a nice welcoming committee there, the Yurok tribe, and of course, Redwood National Park officials. So that was really awesome to see this come full circle for them. Once the birds arrived, so we don't have to handle them again. We took advantage of the time of getting them out of the kennels when we pulled them out of the kennels to go ahead and put transmitters on and ID tags. So that was something we did with their crews. It was also a training opportunity. We were showing them, going over some things with them. Oakland Zoo was also there. They actually gave the birds a post-transfer kind of health check, collected some baseline blood. We have some, obviously, like Zeka was speaking to, we have a lot of ongoing research projects related to lead that we're doing. And so we always get these baseline blood samples, and they also just get blood to check for health status and other aspects. But yeah, they all traveled really well, and they were glad to get back into back to this. This is their new home. I mean, it's what we can call it. I mean, for them, it's the birds are coming home. Especially for the Yurok tribe. So yeah. It was pretty cool just to be a part of it, and as Ventana Wildlife Society, just to have a role in pushing the needle on getting this thing to happen.
And Joe, too, I just want to emphasize, one of the reasons why we're so excited to help them is, not only are we helping to restore condors in the ecological niches that they fill, but for them, it's also restoring their culture. And to me, that's extremely powerful. That really hits home for me on a personal level, having grown up right around the same time the Endangered Species Act was passed and so on. And I've just sort of always felt, a real strong passion for this. And to me, it's like restoring culture, and so I can only imagine how important this is to them. Pregonish is the name that the Yurok has for the condor, and it's just really exciting to see them back.
Yes, it was nice to have. It was all parties were represented and got to see the birds that were basically set. These are the guys. The first, what do you call it?
The pioneers.
Yeah, the pioneers for up there. So it's going to be really cool. They also have a mentor bird in their pen, an adult mentor that won't get released with them, but will be there to kind of help instill the hierarchy and teach them to stay in line with the condor, the condor social hierarchy. So that was exciting. The mentor was there to greet them. And yeah, we had fun. Anything else, Darren and Carrie, you guys want to pipe in? Because I know it was you guys, we all were kind of blown away by the welcoming we got, right?
Yeah, there was so many people there. Like I probably like 30, which is like 25 more than are normally at handling.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so many people from different groups, and then a bunch of elders were there, which is so cool. And we were able to kind of see the condor song, which we didn't think we were going to be able to participate or observe, but it just kind of like tied together how special and important condors are for the Yurok tribe, and just like getting them back up there is so incredible.
Yeah, and just to have a role in that's pretty cool. And we got to do a little sightseeing while we were there. Anytime you get up to this country, I highly recommend anyone that's never been to Redwood National Park to go give it a visit and be humbled by the trees. Some very, very large trees. So these trees we're standing around are just below, by the way, the condor flies fairly close to the release sites. So this is what these young condors are going to be able to hang out in. They just happen to be the tallest trees in the world. So the biggest condor, the biggest bird will get the tallest trees. So it's kind of kind of cool. It's going to be really awesome when these birds get released to see them reunite with these giants. Giant bird with a giant tree. So the trees were truly, you guys can attest to that. I was just couldn't even talk. They were so big. It was just hard to get your head wrapped around.
Yeah, getting your head wrapped around it and your arms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Good luck getting your arms around those trees.
Man, just seeing those was just something else. Never seen trees like that in my life. It was amazing.
Yeah, we kept saying, we have some pretty big redwoods in Big Sur, but I think these are the grandparents to our redwoods. These trees are truly the biggest on the planet. Pretty amazing. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. So yeah, the population's holding good. We're still at 90 birds in Central California. We're still monitoring the 6 fledged, some of which are popping up on the cam. We still have the 6 released birds out at San Simeon. Free flying condor deaths in 2022 is at 1. We hope that stays that way. Still waiting to hear what happened to that bird. We'll let you know when we know. Yeah, so population's holding well. We still don't know how many release birds we're getting for next year. As soon as we know that, we'll update you. Yeah, that's actually the status of the population. Junipero looks like, yeah, that he's been bouncing around, but he's still getting signaled. Everyone, just to recap, back in September, we noticed Junipero with a foot injury. We didn't know how severe it was, and after, with the help of the cam and cam viewers, we were able to really pinpoint what the injury was, and we knew it was, we figured out it was severely broken around mid-October, late October, and we could tell it was a bad break. We had, this whole time, we have traps ready to go. We're trying to capture this bird, and again, very elusive bird, hard to trap just in general, let alone with an injury. And December 8th is when we noticed the foot where the break had happened had fallen off, and it looks like it had basically healed itself. And since then, he appears to have gotten stronger. He's kind of compensating for the lost leg, and which is really encouraging. And he's, in terms of social hierarchy, he's crawling back up, because before, when he was injured, he kind of got knocked down a little bit, but now he's flushing off all the young birds. He's holding his own when he's been recently seen on the cam, which is really exciting. And then, yeah, Darren, it looks like he was signaled just recently, a couple of days ago in Pinnacles.
Yeah, and I think for the past month, he's mostly been detected by Pinnacles National Park. So he's hanging out over that way.
Yeah, and that makes sense. He's, I think he's not as well known over there as he is in Big Sur in terms of the population. So that makes sense. He's kind of laying low over there. Yeah, maybe we can speak to this.
Sure. Yeah. So we, again, another shout out to folks on explore.org who are watching those cameras so closely. We got some communications from folks at 716 Orville had been on the camera on March 21st. Looking a little funny, just kind of behaving weirdly for him and just in general for a healthy condor. And so, we went back and saw some of the photos and the footage, and we noticed what looked like symptoms of lead poisoning. So since then, we've been just continuing to monitor his situation and trying to detect him whenever we can. And yeah, we're still working to monitor him closely and get observations of how he's doing. So again, once we have an update on him, we'll also be sharing that. But for now, yeah, just trying to keep a close eye on him whenever we can.
Yeah, you guys, we had a busy month on this front.
Yeah. So yeah, just jumping into the 6 fledglings from last year. I mean, those untagged birds are still still being seen more and more at the different management sites now. I think Pinnacle's even trapped one of them. I don't think we have genetics back on that bird yet, but the bird does now have a tag and transmitter on it and a temporary ID until we can confirm the genetics on that bird. And unfortunately, it tested high for lead poisoning. So it is currently at Oakland Zoo being treated for that, but we'll be getting that bird out as soon as possible once that lead score goes down.
Yeah, fortunately, yeah, that chick wasn't showing any major clinical signs. So it seemed like definitely seemed like that bird was gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Before you move on, didn't Zeka say she released one of those breeders? Which one was that?
Phoebe 569.
Phoebe.
And I understand she has a new egg.
Yes, yeah, that's what we were just about to hit on.
Oh yes. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, very proud of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are just like some pictures that Evan took up at base camp. He saw 2 untagged juvies up there. I think it was last Monday or last Tuesday. And yeah, they're just some awesome photos with them in the loop-in and sunning and just being cute.
Yeah, and Danae, you were out tracking the day. You saw some birds, some of the younger guys, didn't you?
Yeah, I just made it back in the nick of time for the Zoom chat, but I saw both 1089 and 1095 this morning. They were both flying around really well. Saw them with both sets of parents, which was great. And 1089 is actually down at a really popular sea lion hangout. It's a good spot for sea lion carcasses to wash up and birds to eat. And he/she had made it all the way down to the rocks where potential dead sea lions could wash up. So checking out a potential wild feeding site, which was really awesome to see him or her down there just cruising around and looking like a totally normal adult condor, really adjusting well to his life in the wild or her life in the wild. So really cool just to see them out there today.
Yeah, that's pretty picture perfect when they're not, they're feeding on their own already, feeding on wild food sources with mom and dad. I mean, that's success to me, that's like that's hitting the dart on the bullseye. What was I gonna say? Anyway, I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, let's see here. Oh, the nesting update. Yeah, this is what Zeka was alluding to. Yeah, so you guys, this is a busy chart here, so I'll let you guys roll with it.
Yeah, a lot's happened on the nesting front, the current nesting season front in the past month. So first off, the nest that's been going the longest from Pinnacle's bird 330 and 317. We suspect that their egg has hatched. I don't think they've had anyone go out to confirm anything yet, but it does seem like that egg hatched probably about a week ago, I think, at this point. And we'll probably have updates for you on that soon, or Pinnacles National Park will be announcing updates on that soon. Yeah, and just some other stuff is holding steady here. So 340 and 236, some other birds that are nesting over at Pinnacle's Way. They're still incubating, and same thing for Phoebe and 589, they're nesting again, and seem to still be showing a strong incubation pattern. And then more recently, we were able to confirm some nests here on the coast. So, just starting off with Beak Boy and Solo, two Ventana birds. They've been nesting here on the coast, and same thing with Phoenix and Redwood Queen. We've been able to confirm that they've been nesting, and we'll have some updates on them further along here in the talk. And then also a new pair, I think we mentioned them last time too, is a potential pair, but 729 Ninja and Pinnacle's female 828. We've also confirmed that they've been nesting, and they're showing a pretty strong incubation pattern as well. Unfortunately, another pair over at Pinnacle's 700 and 726, it looks like they have failed their first nesting attempt, but it is still early enough in this nesting season where they could recycle. So the Pinnacles National Park crew is still monitoring them very closely to see if they try nesting again this season. And we're still keeping an eye on a couple pairs here in Big Sur. It looks like 209 Shadow and 171 Traveler are nesting, but we're still trying to find out where their nest location could be. Neither of them have GPS, and 171 currently doesn't have a functioning radio transmitter. So it's just been a little more difficult to nail down where they're nesting, but we should be able to figure that out soon. And then another pair over at Pinnacles that could nest, it looks like 800 and 747. Could give it a go. They're still seen together a lot. So hopefully we'll see something from them this season. Yeah, I'll let, I mean, in order to confirm some of these nests, we've been hiking out a lot this past month. And yeah, I'll let Karen Danae speak more to this. I know this was from a day where you guys went out to look for some nests.
Yeah. So yeah, this whole past month, we've kind of been adventuring around in the woods, which is my favorite part of the job, or one of my favorite parts. We've just been like trying to narrow in on where these birds are nesting, kind of using historic nest sites as a guide. And this is from one of the days where we went out to try to find, I think it was 208 and 168. And
209
yeah,
too. We were suspecting 209 and 171.
yes. But yeah, as you see, we are like crossing a beautiful river and just hiking amongst the redwoods, and can't complain with those views.
Yeah, we really looked out with some weather. Had some really perfect nest hike days in the past month.
Yeah, and then Evan and I hiked up and we confirmed it's great news, but the only bittersweet part of it is, so 190 and 477 are nesting, which is awesome, but they've chosen his nest site, not her nest site. So the cam is on her nest site. So we're right now, me and Evan were able to confirm that those two are in his nest site, which is just up the ridge from her nest site. So there is a possibility we could get the cam going up there later in the season. The nest is not as easily to see into as 190's nest. So we're looking at the feasibility of getting a cam up there if they're successful and the chick hatches and they have a chick, we should be able to get the cam on there and be able to see the chick as it starts branching out and climbing around. So we should be able to get the gear up to that spot. So stay tuned for more on that. We're hoping, again, they've got a long way to go. They got to hatch the egg and raise the chick and a lot of that stuff. But we got a good feeling. It's a beautiful nest site. It's just a much larger tree, and the top of it is pretty tangled. It's
I think we have a photo later on.
Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry. Here's us hiking up, and by the way, the flowers are just horrible up there. I mean, it's just terrible time of year in Big Sur. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the lupins were pretty amazing. It was pretty interesting. As Evan and I were hiking up, 477 came and greeted us. It was really interesting. He was kind of looking at us going, "What are you doing up here?" and it was, we were just having, it was interesting. He kind of kept an eye on us the whole time we were going up. And the cat was out of the bag. We knew where his nest was. So he was trying to just distract us here. You can see on the right, he's flying by us, trying to distract us to another part of the canyon, I think. But yeah, it was really cool to kind of get greeted by the big guy up there. Yeah, and here's, yeah, Carrie, you're right. Here's the tree. As you can see, it's not like the nest cam tree. This is if you can see my pointer here, the nest is in the middle of this giant jumble at the top here. And they come in from the other side of the nest, which is on the steeper side of the canyon. So there's just no way for us to look up into the nest from that side. But there is a tiny little window in here where the pointer is. You can actually see in. We actually saw him sit down on the egg. The egg was just out of view. And we were looking through this tiny little window in the between the foliage and the bark, and we could see him sit down and see his tail sticking out. So it was kind of cool to confirm that he was definitely incubating. So we got to see 190 and Redwood Queen and Phoenix switch out, which was really awesome. And again, it's just one of my condors just continue to blow me away. They pick the most beautiful spots on the planet to nest. And again, that they find the oldest and biggest trees around to nest in. You know, if this tree could talk, boy, it could tell some stories. So anything else back on the nesting? I kind of jumped there, but Kara, Darren, Danae, you guys, anything else you want to add before we get to questions? We're kind of getting to the end here.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I know yeah, hopefully we'll have some news on some of the other pairs that we're still monitoring and looking for eggs for here soon. And yeah, we'll let you guys know when we know.
So yeah, Zeka 569, 2 eggs, 2 nests in a row.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, no, I take no credit. She's great.
You picked a good bird. That she's pretty awesome.
But
We
it
do
is
miss her
crazy
over
to
there, big
see
sir.
like the sheer number of nests you guys are dealing with these days. It's just so different. I mean,
Oh, I know, isn't it? It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I remember when you were on the
Busy.
crew, we were just starting to nest. I think we had 3 nests maybe.
Yep.
They were alternating. So now we're looking at every year we're looking at 12 nests, you know. So it's a good problem to have, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, our next Zoom would be April 28th, 4 p.m. Again, big thank you to Zeka. Thank you for joining us. So proud of you.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be around next year for your next school group, and always here to help out. Oh, and you know, we are seeing peregrines along the coast. So I'm going to follow up with you with some sightings we've had.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys, I
don't know
remember
if anybody's
quite a few.
monitoring them down there, but we definitely are just by default, you know.
I had someone ask me, I think it was just so quickly, a consultant was wondering if there were peregrines on the Big Sur coast. And I was like, well, ask Ventana, because when they're looking for condors, they definitely see all the peregrines down there. Yeah,
there's a Peregrine's Point for sure. Obviously, you know, Hurricane Point, Point Sur, Pfeiffer Point.
Yeah,
they're
just every point.
Yeah, almost every point down the coast. It's pretty amazing. Just that they select that geography characteristic. They go out to those points. Pretty cool. But the condors really draw them out. Whenever a condor flies through, they come out and say hello.
I believe it.
Yeah.
They're vicious.
Cool. All right. Question time, Mike. How are we looking?
Well, yeah, you just sort of hinted at the question that Dan and Elizabeth had questions about how peregrines and condors might interact. And so I'd like to throw that to Zeka, but I want to add on a second question to that. So how do they interact, but also how do you deal with condors and peregrines? What are some of the differences in dealing with those two species?
Yeah, so I did see that question too. But so I've not probably seen as many condor peregrine interactions as you all have seen, but I know a few photos that Tim Huntington has taken of peregrines basically riding on the backs of California condors, trying to chase them away their nest sites, and they do hang out, you know, on those coastlines together, and so there's a lot of opportunities for interactions. And then as far as working with them, you know, peregrines are much smaller than condors, so that's probably the biggest difference. You know, when I'm working with peregrines, I can do all the work by myself, handling the chick, you know, banding the bird, collecting samples. I mean, it's helpful to have help, but it is something I can just do in my lap. Whereas a condor handling event is a huge show. You've got lots of people involved with just the handling part, and then someone on, you know, tagging or collecting samples, and then other people running those samples on site. And so it's much more of a team effort, which is really cool. And yeah, so that's probably the main issue. And then the other thing is, it's not as much a deal with the chicks, but in peregrines in general, you're really worried about the feet. The talons are the danger zone, whereas with condors, feet aren't really something you're too worried about, except for them pushing off you, but their bills are the really potentially damaging part of the bird. So it's different in what you're focusing on as far as handling.
Yeah, and in the sky, obviously, you know, a peregrine would be the equivalent of a F-18 fighter jet, and a condor would be a B-52 bomber. So maneuverability, condors are pretty maneuverable, but peregrine does fly circles around them, put it that way. They're so small, they're kind of like, what's that thing bugging me?
Yeah. I know they're both superlatives. You have the fastest bird and the largest.
Yeah,
bird.
Totally.
Yeah.
And a lot to put in your hands there. So I guess protective equipment, either for the peregrine or the condor, is in order, either for the feet or the beak.
Mm-hmm.
A question from Eliza. Eliza is 7 years old. She's wrapping up first grade. She loves condors, and in her free time, she enjoys visiting the condors at the Oakland Zoo. she would like to know how she can help birds be safe.
How she can help birds and condors, or condors and birds? Just
How she can help birds be safe, but we can answer it in terms of condors, I think.
yeah, I think like for her generation, protecting them as we have been and preserving these areas where they like to go, I think that's really important, and keeping them clean, you know, like just as much as picking up litter anywhere you go, any of these really beautiful places you go, whether you're going down the Big Sur coast or hiking over at Pinnacles, you know, I think it's the little things that add up, you know. I think picking up and just even being in environmentally conscious about what you do and how you know, whether you're using lots of plastic and, you know, stuff like that. I think just being eco-minded really helps birds, and it all trickles down and helps condors as well. And just being aware and educating people about, you know, just how fascinating birds are and their role in the ecosystem. You know, they have an important role, whether it's a hummingbird or a condor. They all have a niche to fill that's really important, and that we need to protect that because it benefits us in the long run.
Hey, you know, I could also add that if you have windows that, you know, birds are flying into, because that does unfortunately happen, there's a real great simple solution to that. And you buy these little stickers that have UV in them so that the birds can see them better. And you put them on your window. In fact, you can see behind me, I have one right here. So, you know, there's a lot of different things you can do. And I'm so glad for your question. Thank you so much for asking it. It's a whole lifetime of learning on how we can protect birds. But I think my team here gave you some great tips.
It's a great question. And I think Joe brought up something really interesting too, in terms of awareness and education. And Eliza, your generation is so important. That next generation is what's going to keep condors and all other birds safe. So keep your interest. Tell others about how great condors and other birds are. Don't be afraid to share how cool birds are, because it's so important for your friends, for your classmates, for the next generation of biologists like Zeka, who will be protecting these amazing birds. So thanks for your question from Oakland. Appreciate that.
A lot more to be learned about birds. We're just scratching the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're excellent indicators of the environment.
Yeah, hey, Kelly, can I throw a question to you? Chris in La Crescenta wants to know, are there any condor documentaries available? And is there anything in the works from Ventana that might fit this bill?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are working on a condor docu-series that I will give you one hint that it was inspired right after the Dolan fire and everything that you all watched in real time on the cams, you know, and inspired things like Ninja that was, you know, that bird Ninja was brought up before. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to do our best to try to share the stories of these birds as individuals, something I think you see us doing regularly. But to try to do that in a docu-series is really challenging. But we're working on that. I don't have a release date yet, but all of our donors and supporters will get to see it during the pre-release period, which should be sometime this summer. In terms of the past, if you go all the way back into the 1980s, there was a wonderful documentary that Robert Redford narrated on the California condor back when the decision was being made to bring them all into captivity. That one's a classic, definitely worth a watch.
It's a good one.
There was another one, Joe, maybe you can help me remember the name of it. It was more recent and it's online and still available.
The Condor Shadow?
Yes, there you go, the Condor Shadow. So you can look that one up. And then Tim Huntington developed a condor documentary on our birds here in Big Sur, the condors of Big Sur, and that's still found on our website. So there's three good options right there.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Thank you, Kelly.
And I think we got time for one more.
We have time for one question more, and I'd like to throw this one to our panelists, either Danae, Darren, or Kara. or any combination of you three, because you're out there watching the birds all the time. And so you might know more than I about this. But Wendy from Carmel, she writes that a woman in line at the post office told her that she saw condors dive bombing something at the beach at San Simeon in the elephant seal rookery. Would condors go after an elephant seal pup that is still living? Have you seen any kind of behavior that might substantiate this rumor that we've got from the post office?
Yeah, Danae, do you want to tackle that one first, and maybe all of us can chime in?
Sure. Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of stories like that. A lot of people that think that they've seen condors go after something that was alive, and it's really not something that we see. Condors are scavengers. They really go after things that have already died. They don't have kind of that predatory instinct like a falcon or any other kind of raptor like a hawk or an eagle would. They also don't have, as Zeka mentioned earlier, they don't have talons like raptors do to be able to grab anything to hunt with. Their feet are basically like giant chicken feet. And so they really don't have the tools to kill something, but they do have the tools to eat something after it's already died. So I don't think any of us have ever seen them go after any live elephant seal pups, but definitely if there's mortality in an elephant seal breeding colony and there's some pups that have died, then the condors will definitely go for that meal. And that's a really important food source for them in that area. There's also a lot of turkey vultures that will be feeding on those as well. So that's something that someone might have seen too. And again, yeah, they're going after the things, in that case, the elephant seal pups that have already died, which does happen when you have big breeding colonies. There's a good amount of mortality every year. So yeah, feel free to chime in too.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, even though condors are so big, they're also pretty scared. So they kind of like hang out and just observe for a while before they actually go in for a meal. So they probably wouldn't be the first ones to kind of make that move.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what Danae and Kara said. I mean, we really haven't seen condors go after anything living still, and as Kara said, anything that moves kind of spooks them. So yeah, I think we're always looking though for condors, especially down at the San Simeon elephant seal hangout there. We're always looking to see if condors are around, checking things out, kind of like they do in Big Sur with the sea lions, to see if there's any dead elephant seals or seal pups on the beach. But yeah, nothing that we've seen there on that front yet.
Okay, and Darren, I'm just going to ask a really quick question, and then Joe can just take it up with final words. But Scott really wants to know if there's any update on Peachy number 66 from the San Simeon 9. Is that bird accounted for these days?
Yeah, as far as I know, we were just looking at sort of our database that shows us when condors have been detected recently, and I'm pretty sure 66 has been detected recently. But
I'll give you a live update right now.
But yeah, as far as we know, that bird's still doing well.
Yeah. Sometimes even though they don't appear on camera, they may be in the area, or they might be at pinnacles or somewhere else, and we may have detected them through radio telemetry, but not necessarily by camera.
Yeah, Peachy was detected by pinnacles on the 29th. So that bird's okay.
Very good. Thanks, Kara.
You're welcome.
And thank you everyone for your questions. Sorry if we missed them. Any questions we can get you next time, but I'll throw it to Joe for any final words.
Great job fielding those questions, Mike, as usual. And thank you again, Zeka. Such an honor to have you on the Condor Update. We're so proud of your work, and just keep it going. I mean, it's pretty awesome, and we look forward to working with you more. And yeah, I'll let you know about those peregrines.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you, everybody. And Kelly, you got any final words?
No, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's really been great. We'll see you next time.